What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's Cybersecurity Weekly, where we review the security events that happened in the last week. As always, I have broken the stories down in the timeline, and there's a list of the stories with time markers in the description below. So you can click on any of those time markers to jump around to any story you want. If you find my work valuable, of course, I ask you to hit the like button and share this episode with anyone you know who can benefit from this information. And if you have not already, please consider subscribing to my channel.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
We start off today with patches. Microsoft has released workarounds for a recently discovered zero-day vulnerability dubbed Follina and tracked a CVE 2022-30190 with a CVSS score of 7.8 in the Microsoft Office Productivity Suite. On Monday, May 30th, 2022, Microsoft issued CVE 2022-30190 regarding the Microsoft Support Diagnostic Tool in Windows Vulnerability, reads the advisory published by Microsoft. A remote code execution vulnerability exists when MSDT is called using the URL protocol from a calling application such as Word. An attacker who successfully exploits this vulnerability can run arbitrary code with the privileges of the calling application. The attacker can then install programs, view, change, or delete data, or create new accounts in the context allowed by the user's rights. This week, the cybersecurity researcher now_sec discovered a malicious Word document 05-2022-0438.doc that was uploaded to VirusTotal from Belarus. The document uses the remote template feature to fetch an HTML and then uses the ms-msdt scheme to execute PowerShell code. The popular cybersecurity expert Kevin Beaumont, who named the bug Follina, published an analysis of the flaw. The document uses the word remote template feature to retrieve an HTML file from a remote web server, which in turn uses the ms-msdt ms protocol URA scheme to load some code and execute some PowerShell, reads the analysis published by Beaumont. There's a lot going on here, but the first problem is Microsoft Word is executing the code via MSDT, a support tool, even if macros are disabled. Protected view does kick in, although if you change the document to RTF form, it runs without even opening the document. View the preview tab in the Explorer, let alone protected view. The issue affects multiple Microsoft Office versions, including Office 2016, Office 2021. Microsoft has now published a guidance for CVE 2022-30190 Microsoft Support Diagnostic Tool Vulnerability. Microsoft recommends disabling the MSDT URL protocol as workarounds. And the instructions to do that include to disable the MSDT URL protocol. What it does is it prevents troubleshooters being launched as links, including links throughout the operating system. Troubleshooters can still be accessed using the Get Help application and its system settings as other or additional troubleshooters. So these are the steps to disable it. Run command prompt as an administrator. To back up the registry key, execute the command reg export hkey classes root /msdt and then the file name. Then execute the command reg delete and then the hkey classes root. Now, if you want to undo the workaround, you run the command prompt as administrator again. You go back to the registry key, execute the command reg import file name. Microsoft credited Crazy Man with Shadow Chaser Group. The tech giant labeled the flaw as fixed on April 21st, 2022, and dismissed the vulnerability as not a security issue because the diagnostic tool requires a passkey for its execution. GitLab has fixed a critical security flaw in its GitLab Enterprise Edition, tracked a CVE 2022-1680 with a CVSS score of 9.9 that could be exploited to take over an account. The vulnerability impacts all versions starting from 11.10 before 14.9.5, all versions starting from 14.10 before 14.10.4, and all versions starting from 15.0 and then before 15.0.1. When Group SAML SSO is configured, the SCIM feature, available only on Premium Plus subscriptions, may allow any owner of a premium group to invite arbitrary users to their username and email, then change those users' email addresses via SCIM to an attacker-controlled email address, and thus, in the absence of two-factor authentication, take over those accounts. Reads the advisory published by GitHub. It's also possible for the attacker to change the display name and username of the targeted account. This CVE 2022-16800 flaw was discovered by a member of the GitLab team. The company also addressed other flaws, 7 in total. The complete list is reported as account takeover via SCIM email change with the critical severity, stored XSS or cross-site scripting in Jira integration, quick action commands susceptible to cross-site scripting, IP allow list bypass when using trigger tokens, IP allow list bypass when using project deploy tokens, improper authorization in the interactive web terminal, subgroup member can list members of parent group, and group member lock bypass. The company urges users to upgrade to the latest version as soon as possible. We now move on to attacks, vulnerabilities, and updates. Operators behind the EnemyBot botnet are expanding the list of potential targets, adding exploits for recently disclosed critical vulnerabilities in VMware, F5, Big IP, and Android. The botnet was first discovered by Fortinet in March. The DDoS botnet targeted several routers and web servers by exploiting known vulnerabilities. The botnet targets multiple architectures, including ARM, BSD, x64, and x86. The researchers attribute the botnet to the cybercrime group KEXSEC, which focuses on DDoS-based extortion. Upon installing the threat, the bot drops a file in /temp/.pond containing a message that attributes itself to KEXSEC. The message was stored as clear text in earlier samples. New samples were released with the message encoded with XOR operation using a multiple byte key. Experts pointed out that the malware is being actively developed. The EnemyBot botnet borrows the code from the GafGuide bot and reused some codes from the infamous Mirai botnet. GafGuide is a popular choice for launching large-scale DDoS attacks. It first appeared in the threat landscape in 2014. The botnet implements multiple obfuscation techniques to avoid detection and hides command and control server on the Tor network. The EnemyBot botnet employs several methods to spread and targets other IoT devices. It uses a list of hard-coded username/password combinations to log into devices in the attempt to access systems using weak or default credentials. The bot also tries to run shell commands to inject misconfigured Android devices that expose the Android debug bridge port 5555. The first version of the bot exploits tens of known vulnerabilities. I really don't like that statement, but whatever. One is CVE 2022-17456, the vulnerability affecting CO1, Intec SLC-130, and SLR-120S routers. CVE 2018-10823, flaw in older D-Link routers, DWR-116 through 1.06, and then there's a whole list of them, including DWR-111, -912, -921, etc. Then there's CVE 2022-272226 affecting IRZ mobile routers, in case you have that. CVE 2022-25075-2, 25084, which targets Toto-Link routers, previously exploited by the Beast Mode botnet, in case you have those. CVE 2021-44228 to CVE 2021-45046, better known as Log4j. More details are available on the Fortinet PSRT blog. Then there's CVE 2021-41773-2, CVE 2021-42013, which targets Apache HTTP servers, which tons of those out there. CVE 2018-20062 targets Think PHP CMS. Don't know very many people that use it, but I'm sure it's in use. CVE 2017-18368 targets Zyxel P660HN routers, for those of you that use it. CVE 2016-6277 targets Netgear routers. CVE 2015-2051 targets D-Link routers. 2014-9118 targets Zone routers. And then there's Netgear DGN 1000 exploit, where there's no CVE assigned, and it targets Netgear routers. Now, researchers from AT&T Alien Labs analyzed the latest variants of the EnemyBot botnet and discovered that included exploits for 24 vulnerabilities, including issues that don't even have a CVE number like the Netgear one. The new variant of the bot includes exploits for the following security issues: CVE 2022-22954, which is a critical RCE flaw in VMware Workspace 1 Access and VMware Identity Manager. Then there's CVE 2022-22947, which is an RCE flaw in Spring. Then there's CVE 2022-1388, which is a critical RCE flaw in F5 Big IP. AT&T researchers reported the availability of the EnemyBot source code on GitHub. This means that threat actors can modify it to create their own version of the bot. Researchers recommend properly configuring your firewall to protect the devices exposed online, enable automatic updates, and monitor network traffic. CloudSec's Threat Intelligence Research Team has disclosed a new ransomware strain called GoodWill that demands victims the payment of a ransom through donations for social causes and financially helping people in need. The ransomware group propagates very unusual demands in exchange for the decryption key. The Robin Hood-like group claims to be interested in helping the less fortunate rather than extorting victims for financial motivations, recent analysis published by CloudSec. The group's multiple-page ransom note suggests that victims perform 3 social-driven activities to be able to download the decryption key. The GoodWill Ransomware is written in .NET. In order to evade detection, it is packed with UPX packers and sleeps for 722.45 seconds before starting its activity. The researchers attribute the attack to a threat actor based in India. Ransomware operators request their victims to perform 3 socially driven activities in exchange for the decryption key. Researchers observe that the ransomware code is based on the hidden tier open source ransomware. Victims have to donate new clothes to the homeless, record their action, and post it on social media. In addition, the victims can accompany less fortunate children to Domino's, Pizza Hut, or KFC for a treat, take pictures and videos, and post them on social media. The last action for the victims consists of providing financial assistance to anyone who needs urgent medical attention but cannot afford it at a nearby hospital, recording audio, and sharing it with the operators. Once all 3 activities are completed, the victim should also write a note on social media, Facebook or Instagram, on how you transformed yourself into a kind human being by becoming a victim of a ransomware called GoodWill, said the researchers. Since there are no known victims targets for the ransomware group, their tactics, techniques, and procedures remain unknown. The researchers also shared indicators of compromise for this ransomware. Recently, CloudSec founder Rahul Sassi warned of an ongoing WhatsApp OTP scam that could allow threat actors to hijack users' accounts through phone calls. The fraudulent scheme is simple. Threat actors make a phone call to the victims to trick them into making a call at a phone number starting either with 405 or 67. Sassi explained that after a few minutes, their WhatsApp account is logged out and attackers are able to take over the account. The number dialed by the victim is a service request for Geo and Airtel to do call forwarding when a mobile user is busy. Using this scheme, the attacker tricks the victims into enabling the call forwarding to a number under their control. Then the threat actors start the WhatsApp registration process for the victim's number, asking to send the OTP via phone call. Since the phone is busy, the phone call is directed to the attacker's phone, allowing him to gain control of the victim's WhatsApp account. At this time, this fraudulent scheme is targeting only WhatsApp users in India, but experts warn that this kind of attack could be observed in almost any country where a similar forwarding service is available. Researchers from Kaspersky have analyzed the activity of an aggressive threat actor tracked as SideWinder, aka Rattlesnake, and TAPT-04. The group stands out for the high frequency and persistence of its attacks. Researchers believe that the app group has carried out over 1,000 attacks since April 2020. SideWinder has been active since at least 2012. The group's main target is police, military, maritime, and the naval forces of the Central Asian countries. In most recent attacks, the threat actors also targeted departments for foreign affairs, scientific and defense organizations, aviation, IT industry, and legal firms. The threat actor maintains a large command and control infrastructure composed of more than 400 domains and subdomains that were used to host malicious payloads and control them. The first stage domains are used to host the first stage malware that speeds through spear phishing messages to receive collected information by first stage malware and to host the second stage payloads. The experts observed some newly registered domains that were likely used to expand the list of targets in other countries. This threat actor has a relatively high level of sophistication using various infection vectors and advanced attack techniques. These techniques include multiple obfuscation routines, encryption with unique keys for each malicious file, multi-layer malwares, memory resident malwares, and splitting infrastructure strings into different malware components, states Kaspersky. The group employed several techniques to evade detection, including multiple obfuscation techniques, encryption with unique keys for each malware sample, multi-layer malware strains, memory resident malicious payloads, and splitting malicious URLs into different attack components. The multi-level attack chain, the final payload, is a backdoor that allows attackers to take over the infected systems. Now, experts also detailed command and control domains used in the final stage of the attacks. The URLs used for command and control communications for these domains are split into 2 parts. The installer module contains the first part of the URL, which is the command and control server domain name in encrypted form. The second half of the URL is encrypted inside the second stage ATA module. Costa Rican Social Security Fund Costa Rica's Public Health Service was hit last week by a Hive ransomware attack, Bleeping Computer reported. The attack occurred early in the morning. Tuesday, May 31st, 2022. The authorities are investigating the security breach, but the Public Health Service confirmed that the attack did not impact the EDUS, Unified Digital Health, and the SCIM, Centralized Tax Collection System databases. It also added that the incident did not compromise payroll and pension services. The CCC has asked its employees to disconnect their computers from the internal networks. Some of them reported that the printers inside the agency began printing pages with ransom ASCII. Last month, the Conti ransomware gang claimed responsibility for the attack on Costa Rica government infrastructure after the government refused to pay a ransom. The attack impacted multiple government services, including CCSS, the Finance Ministry, and the Labor Industry. The Conti ransomware gang also threatened to overthrow the new government of the country. The list of government entities hit by Conti affiliates also includes the country's Ministry of Finance, its Ministry of Labor and Social Security, the Ministry of Science, Innovation, Technology and Telecommunications, and the Social Development and Family Allowances Fund. The gang claimed to have insiders in the government and revealed that the attack was carried out by an affiliate group tracked as UNC1756. Now, Conti ransomware gang is demanding a $20 million ransom. Initially, the group asked for a payment of $10 million for the decryption keys to recover the impacted systems. Blippi Computer pointed out that after Conti announced the shutting down of its operations, some of its members had joined Hive Group, and both gangs have begun leaking the victims' data on both dark web leak sites. China-linked app group TA413 has been observed exploiting the recently disclosed Follina zero-day flaw, tracked as CVE 2022-30190, and rated CVS a score of 7.8 in Microsoft Office in the attacks in the wild. This week, the cybersecurity researcher Neo_Sec discovered a malicious Word document that was uploaded to VirusTotal from Belarus. The document uses the remote template feature to fetch an HTML and then uses the MS-MSDT schema to execute PowerShell code. Researchers from Proofpoint reported that TA413 is conducting a spear phishing campaign that uses zip archives containing weaponized Word documents. The attackers impersonate the Woman Empowerment Desk of the Central Tibetan Administration and use the domain tibet-gov.web.app for the attacks. The TA413 app group is known to be focused on Tibetan organizations across the world. In past attacks, threat actors used a malicious Firefox add-on dubbed Firefox to steal Gmail and Firefox browser data and deliver malware on affected systems. Proofpoint has previously reported on Sepulture malware and its links to the Lucky Cat and Exile Rat malware campaigns that also targeted Tibetan organizations. Microsoft has now published a guidance for CVE 2022-30190 Microsoft Support Diagnostics Tool vulnerability, and waiting for a security patch, Microsoft recommends disabling the MSDT URL protocol as workarounds, and the instructions we talked about in the actual patches section. Researchers from Shadow Server scanned the internet for publicly accessible MySQL server instances on port 3306 and uncovered 3.6 million installs worldwide responding to their queries. These publicly accessible MySQL server instances represent a potential attack surface for their owners. These are instances that respond to our MySQL connection requests with a server greeting. Surprising to us, we found around 2.3 million IP version 4 addresses responding with such a greeting to our queries. Even more surprising, we found over 1.3 million IP version 6 devices responding as well, though mostly associated with a single autonomous system, states the report published by the researchers. Most of the accessible IP version 4 MySQL servers are in the United States, then China, then Poland, and Germany. Most of the accessible IP version 6 MySQL servers are again in the United States, then in Netherlands, then Singapore, and then Germany. Researchers recommend admins follow the MySQL 5.7 Secure Deployment Guide and the MySQL 8.0 Secure Deployment Guide for deploying of their servers. Researchers from Checkpoint have discovered a new version of the XLoader Botnet which implements significant enhancements such as a new technique to obscure the command and control infrastructure. XLoader has been observed since 2020. It is a very cheap malware strain that is based on the popular Formbook Windows malware. Checkpoint experts now state that it is significantly harder to determine the real command and control servers among thousands of legitimate domains used by the operators as a smokescreen. The researchers pointed out that all XLoader samples have 64 domains and one URI in their configurations. XLoader and Formbook shares the same structure of configuration. The X64 domains from the malware configuration are actually decoys used as a diverse strategy. Starting with the Formbook version 4.1 and early versions of XLoader up to 2.5, developers have hidden a domain name for the real command and control server among the 64 decoys, while the URI that was always thought to be an address of the command and control server became another decoy and is used to a legitimate website. The malicious code analyzed by the researchers randomly choose 16 decoy domains, 2 of which are replaced with the fake command and control server address and a real command and control server address. To make it harder for the analysis, the real command and control server is accessed only after a long delay. In the latest versions analyzed by Checkpoint, the malware first selects 16 decoy domains from the configuration, then the first 8 domains are overwritten with new random values before each communication cycle while taking steps to skip the real domain. What's changed in the newer versions of XLoader is that after the selection of the 16 decoy domains from the configuration, the first 8 domains are overwritten with new random values before that were selected immediately after relaunch. The experts also noticed that XLoader 2.5 replaces 3 domains in the created list with 2 decoys and the real command and control server domain. Researchers from SonarSource discovered a remote code execution vulnerability with CVE 2022-30287 in the open source Horde Webmail client. Horde Webmail allows users to manage contacts. The flaw could be exploited by an authenticated user of a Horde instance to take over an email server by sending a specially crafted email to a victim. The vulnerability can be exploited with a single GET request, which can be triggered via cross-site request forgery. For this, an attacker can craft a malicious email and include an external image that, when rendered, exploits the vulnerability without further interaction of a victim. The only requirement is to have a victim open the malicious email, reads the advisory published by SonarSource. The vulnerability resides in default configuration. It can be simply exploited by tricking victims into opening the malicious email. The researchers also explained that the clear text credentials of the victim triggering the exploit are leaked to the attacker in case of successful exploitation of the bug. The Horde Webmail reached its end of life in 2017. It is known to be affected by multiple flaws. For this reason, users should stop using it. If a sophisticated advisory could compromise a webmail server, they can intercept every sent and received email, access password reset links and sensitive documents, impersonate personnel, and steal all credentials of users logging into the webmail service, explained the experts. The analysis of Conti Group's chats, which were leaked earlier this year, revealed that the ransomware gang has been working on firmware attack techniques. An attack against firmware could give threat actors significant powers. They are hard to detect and could be very destructive, and attackers can use them to achieve long-term strategic goals. Researchers from firmware and hardware security firm Eclipsium discovered that the Conti ransomware gang was working on attacks targeting both UEFI/BIOS and the Intel Management Engine, or Intel Converged Security Management Engine. The Intel Management Engine consists of a microcontroller that works with the platform controller hub chip in conjunction with integrated peripherals. It is a critical component that handles data exchange between the processor and peripherals. For this reason, security experts warned in the past of the risks of Intel Management Engine vulnerabilities. An attacker can exploit a flaw in the Intel ME to establish a backdoor on the affected system and gain full control over it. Compromising the management engine of a system would have considerable value on its own, but the leaks show that the group is using the unique privileges of the ME firmware as a way to gain indirect access to the UEFI/BIOS, drop additional payloads, and gain runtime control of the system below the operating system using system management mode, reads the post published by Eclipsium. Such level of access would allow an adversary to cause irreparable damage to a system or to establish ongoing persistence that is virtually invisible to the operating system. Leaked chat revealed that the group had already developed a proof of concept code for such kind of attacks at least 9 months ago. Experts believe that the firmware attack techniques devised by the group will be used in the wild in the near future. Ellipsium researchers discovered that the Conti gang was focusing research in the following areas: fuzzing the management engine interface to discover undocumented commands and zero-day flaws, attempting to access SPI, the flash memory used by the UEFI/BIOS system firmware, from the ME to bypass other protections, provisioning AMT or changing other ME configurations from the host to uncover ME vulnerabilities that can give the attackers arbitrary code execution, They are working on both a stealth dropper from UEFI and a system management mode implant. System management mode is a runtime CPU mode controlled by the UEFI BIOS that is more privileged than the Ring 0 operating system kernel. The operating system kernel doesn't have the ability to examine SMM code or block it from executing. As a result, an SMM implement could modify the kernel on the fly with complete stealth and without the OS being able to do anything to prevent it. The chat confirms that the group was able to develop a proof of concept code that uses vulnerabilities in the ME interface to rewrite SPI flash memory and gain SMM execution, allowing to drop system management mode level implants. The electronics manufacturing giant Foxconn confirmed that its production plant in Tijuana, Mexico, has been impacted by a ransomware attack in late May. The LockBit ransomware gang claimed responsibility for an attack and announced that it will release the stolen data by June 11, 2022, if the company does not pay the ransom. The production plant is in a strategic geographic position for the reception and distribution of materials because it's located on the border with San Diego. The company said the operations at its production plant are slowly returning to normal after the attack. The company's cybersecurity team has been carrying out the recovery plan accordingly. The factory is gradually returning to normal, a Foxconn spokesperson said. The disruption caused to business operations will be handled through production capacity adjustment. The cybersecurity attack is estimated to have little impact in the group's overall operations. Relevant information about the incident is also provided instantly on our management, clients, and suppliers. This is the second time that the Foxconn plant in Mexico was impacted by a ransomware attack. In 2020, the doppelpaymer hit the plant in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, and demanded a $34 million ransom. Microsoft announced to have blocked a series of attacks targeting Israeli organizations that had been conducted by a previously unknown Lebanon-based hacking group tracked as Polonium. Polonium has targeted or compromised more than 20 Israeli organizations and one intergovernmental organization with operations in Lebanon over the past 3 months. Since February, the attacks targeted organizations in critical manufacturing, IT, and Israel's defense industry. Threat actors were observed abusing OneDrive. For this reason, the IT giant has suspended more than 20 malicious OneDrive applications created by Polonium actors, notified affected organizations, and deployed a series of security intelligence updates that will quarantine malicious tools developed by the attackers. MSTIC researchers believe that the attackers were coordinated with other actors affiliated with Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security based on victim overlap in TTPs. This circumstance is confirmed by revelations that emerged in the last couple of years that the Iranian government is using cyber mercenaries for its operations. This actor has deployed unique tools that abuse legitimate cloud services for command and control across most of their victims, reads the analysis published by Microsoft. Polonium was observed creating and using legitimate OneDrive accounts, then utilizing those accounts as command and control servers to execute part of their attack operation. MSTIC has observed Polonium active on or targeting multiple organizations that were previously compromised by Iran-linked Muddy Water Apt, aka Mercury. Polonium notified affected organizations and deployed a series of security intelligence updates that will quarantine tools developed by Polonium operators. I actually should say Microsoft notified affected organizations, not Polonium. The IT giant pointed out that threat actors did not exploit any vulnerabilities on the OneDrive platform. The threat actors employed in the attacks multiple custom implants such as Creepy Drive and Creepy Snail that utilize cloud services for command and control as well as data exfiltration. The analysis of the attack revealed that the approximately 80% of the observed victims were using Fortinet appliances, a circumstance that suggests the attackers may have compromised their network by exploiting the CVE 2018 13379 vulnerability. In at least one case, Polonium conducted a supply chain attack through the compromise of a cloud service provider based in Israel and likely used this access to compromise downstream customers of the service provider. Now, Microsoft provides indicators of compromise for these attacks and recommends customers verify that Microsoft Defender antivirus uses the latest security intelligence updates, version 1.365.40.0 or later, uses multi-factor authentication for all remote connectivity, and reviews all authentication activity for remote access infrastructure. Atlassian is warning of a critical unpatched remote code execution vulnerability affecting all Confluence Server and data center supported versions tracked to CVE 2022-26134 that is being actively exploited in attacks in the wild. Atlassian has been made aware of current active exploitation of critical security unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability in Confluence data center and server. Further details about the vulnerability are being withheld until a fix is available, reads the advisory published by the company. The issue was reported by security firm Volexity. The company announced the availability of the security fixes for supported versions of Confluence within 24 hours. Waiting for the fixes, Atlassian urges customers to restrict Confluence server and data center instances from the internet or consider disabling Confluence server and data center instances altogether. Volexity researchers discovered the issue as part of an investigation into an attack that took over the Memorial Day weekend. The attackers targeted 2 internet-facing web servers that were running Atlassian Confluence server software. Volexity determined that threat actors launched an exploit to achieve remote code execution. They triggered a zero-day vulnerability that impacted fully up-to-date versions of Confluence server. This isn't the first time that the flaws in Atlassian Confluence are exploited in attacks in the wild. In September 2021, Trend Micro researchers spotted crypto mining campaigns that were actively exploiting a recently disclosed critical remote code execution vulnerability in Atlassian Confluence deployments that were across Windows and Linux. At the end of August 2021, Atlassian released security patches to address that critical CV 2021-26084 flaw that affected the Confluence Enterprise Collaboration product. The flaw is an OGNL injection issue that can be exploited by an authenticated attacker to execute arbitrary code on affected Confluence servers and data center instances. Researchers at Symantec's Threat Hunter team uncovered a crypto mining operation that has potentially made the actors behind it at least $1.7 million in illicit gains. The bot focuses on cryptocurrency mining and cryptocurrency theft via clipboard hijacking. The malicious code, tracked by Symantec as Trojan.Clipminer, has many similarities to another crypto miner called CryptoCBule, suggesting a possible rebranding of the same threat. Clipminer was first spotted in early 2021. It likely spread via Trojanized downloads of cracked or pirated software. The attack chain starts in the form of a self-extracting WinRAR archive that drops into and executes a downloader in the form of a packed portable executable DLL file with CPL file extension, although it does not follow the CPL format. Then the downloader connects to the Tor network to download the components of the Clipminer. The researchers discovered that the operators are controlling a total of 4,375 unique crypto wallet addresses, 3,677 of which are used for just 3 different formats of Bitcoin addresses. The malware includes a total of 4,375 unique addresses of wallets controlled by the attacker. Out of these, 3,677 addresses are used for just 3 different formats of Bitcoin addresses. Investigating just Bitcoin and Ethereum wallet addresses, researchers have found, that they at one time, or at the time of the writing of the article, contained approximately 34.3 Bitcoin and 129.9 Ethereum, reads the analysis published by Symantec. However, some funds had also been transferred to what appear to be cryptocurrency tumblers, also known as a cryptocurrency mixing service. Experts estimated that including the funds transferred out to cryptocurrency mixing services, the botnet operators have potentially made at least $1.7 million from the clipboard hijacking alone. Clipminer has proven a successful endeavor, earning its operators a considerable amount of money, concludes the report published by Symantec that also includes indicators of compromise. Researchers from Kaspersky have uncovered an extremely sophisticated China-linked app group tracked as LuoYu that has been observed using a malicious Windows tool called WinDealer. LuoYu has been active since at least 2008. It focuses on targets located in China, such as foreign diplomatic organizations established in the country, members of the academic community, or companies from the defense, logistics, and telecommunications sectors. The activity of the group was first documented by Team T5, the researchers, that also reported the use of 3 malware families: SpyDealer, Dempsey, and WinDealer. The threat actors developed capabilities to target almost any operating system, including Windows, Linux, macOS, and Android devices. In the past, LuoYu Group used watering hole attacks to deliver their malware. Since 2020, the WinDealer malware was delivered through an automatic update mechanism of select legitimate applications. WinDealer has a modular structure. It allows its operators to steal sensitive information, capture screenshots, execute arbitrary commands, download and upload arbitrary files, system-wide search across text files and Microsoft Word documents, network discovery via ping scan. The latest WinDealer sample, analyzed by Kaspersky in 2020, doesn't contain a hard-coded command and control server, but instead relies on a complex IP generation algorithm to determine the server to contact. Putting all the pieces together, WinDealer's infrastructure is nothing short of extraordinary. It appears to be distributed via plain HTTP requests that normally return legitimate executables. It communicates with IP addresses selected randomly inside a specific AS. It can interact with non-existent domain names. It is very hard to believe that an attacker would be able to control the 48,000 IP addresses of the aforementioned IP ranges, or even a significant portion of them, reads the analysis published by Kaspersky. The only way to explain these seemingly impossible network behaviors is by assuming the existence of a man-on-the-side attacker who is able to intercept all network traffic and even modify it if needed. A man-on-the-side attack is a form of active attack in a computer security similar to a man-in-the-middle attack. Instead of completely controlling a network node, as in a man-in-the-middle attack, the attacker only has regular access to the communication channel, which allows him to read the traffic and insert new messages, but not to modify or delete messages sent by other participants. The attacker relies on a timing advantage to make sure that the response he sends to the request of a victim arrives before the legitimate response. Man-on-the-side attacks are very dangerous and effective. They do not require any interaction with the target to infect it. Every machine exposed on the internet could be compromised. They can only be detected through the careful network monitoring, which is outside of the realm of everyday users, or if an endpoint security program catches the payload when it is deployed on the affected or the attacked computer. We now move on to other security news. Interpol arrested 3 Nigerian men in Lagos as part of an international operation codenamed Killer Bee. The 3 men are suspected of using the Agent Tesla rat to reroute financial transactions and steal confidential details from corporate organizations. The suspect, aged between 31 and 38, the police found them in possession of fake documents, including fraudulent invoices and forged official letters. The list of victims includes oil and gas companies in Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa. Agent Tesla, first discovered in late 2014, is an extremely popular malware-as-a-service remote access Trojan tool used by threat actors to steal information such as credentials, keystrokes, clipboard data, and other information from its operators' targets. Both cybercriminal groups and actors involved in espionage operations use this rat due to the Agent Tesla's stability, flexibility, and functionality that allows for the collection of sensitive data and exfiltration from the victim. The Operation Killer Bee involved Interpol's General Secretariat headquarters and National Central Bureaus and law enforcement agencies from 11 countries across Southeast Asia. One of the fraudsters, Hendrix Omorume, has been charged and convicted of 3 counts of serious financial fraud. The 2 other men are still on trial. Omorume faces 1-year prison sentence. A 1-year prison sentence, that's it? That's nuts. Through its global police network and constant monitoring of cyberspace, Interpol had the globally sourced intelligence needed to alert Nigeria to a serious security threat where millions could have been lost without swift police action, said Interpol's director of cybercrime, Craig Jones. Further arrests and prosecutions are foreseen across the world as intelligence continues to come in and investigations unfold. Wait a second. 1 year in prison for what he's done? That's nothing. Anyway. Last week, the Interpol, the Nigeria police force, with the support of several cybersecurity companies, Group IB, Palo Alto Networks, Unit 42, and Trend Micro, has identified a 37-year-old Nigerian man that is believed to be one of the leaders of the Silver Terrier cybercrime group. Cyber Research Labs observed a rise in ransomware attacks in the second quarter of 2022, some of them with a severe impact on the victims, such as the attack that hit the Costa Rican government that caused a nationwide crisis. The experts warned of ransomware attacks against government organizations. They observed a total of 48 government organizations from 21 countries that were hit by 13 ransomware attacks in 2022. Cyber researchers warn that cybercriminal organizations have changed tactics, switching from businesses to small states, threatening to subvert government apparatus. Small states are easy targets due to the low level of security of their critical infrastructure due to the low budget to protect them. The notorious ransomware group Conti began targeting the Costa Rican government in April 2022. A similar attack was seen in May 2021 when the gang targeted Ireland's publicly funded healthcare system and demanded a ransom of $20 million, reads the post published by Cyber. The timing could be a pure coincidence. However, Conti was seemingly trying the same tactics with Costa Rica, but this time on a larger scale, shortly after a change in government in the country. The Conti ransomware gang, after the attack against Costa Rica, also hit Peru. The experts also warned other ransomware attacks that hit government organizations in Latin America, including Brazilian and Peruvian government organizations. Cyber Research Labs conducted research over vulnerable instances of the Peruvian government's cyber infrastructure and identified 21 instances from 11 ministerial websites with the most exploitative ease from 2021. The researchers also reported the sale on underground cybercrime forums of data exfiltrated from the server for government organizations, including the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, the Federal Court of Malaysia, and the Department of Management Services under the Malaysian Ministry of Personnel and Organizational Development, the National Bank of Angola, the Civil Service Commission of Republic of Philippines. The experts highlight the importance for smaller states to improve their detection capabilities and to put in place systems to quickly respond to cyber attacks. Cybel remarks the need to invest in capacity building to cultivate skilled manpower, enhance awareness among citizens, and narrow the technology gap to minimize their risk footprint. Typically, cyber attacks on small nations by state-sponsored and renowned apps are adopted by a few sponsoring nations to impact the socio-political fabric and gain a political and diplomatic edge when it comes to trade and investment, concludes the report. Ransomware gangs targeting one-off government establishments for monetary returns are also not a new phenomenon. Regardless, the global cybersecurity fraternity and policymakers must closely monitor ransomware gangs, mobilizing their resources to strike at these nations' foundations. An international law enforcement operation involving 11 countries led to the takedown of the infamous FluBot Android malware. The investigation involved law enforcement authorities of Australia, Belgium, Finland, Hungary, Ireland, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and the United States, with the coordination of international activity carried out by Europol's European Cybercrime Center. FluBot has been active since December 2020. It was first observed targeting Spanish users since March 2021. The malicious code was also employed in attacks aimed at several European countries, as well as Japan. In March 2021, experts from Swiss security outfit ProDaft estimated that the number of affected devices worldwide was approximately 60,000. The Android malware has been used to steal banking credentials, payment information, and sensitive data from infected devices. In past attacks, the malware was spreading by spamming text messages to contacts from infected phones that instruct them to install tainted apps from servers under the control of the attackers. The malicious code also requests permissions to access the Android Accessibility Service, implemented to assist users with disabilities in using Android devices and apps, but that was abused by threat actors to carry out malicious activities. Since October 2021, threat actors behind the FluBot Android malware are leveraging fake security updates to trick victims into installing the malicious code. The attackers use fake security warnings of FluBot infections and urge them to install the security updates. An international law enforcement operation involving 11 countries has resulted in the takedown of one of the fastest spreading mobile malware to date, known as FluBot. This Android malware has been spreading aggressively through SMS, stealing passwords, online bank details, and other sensitive information from infected smartphones across the world, reads the announcement published by Europol. Its infrastructure was successfully disrupted earlier in May by the Dutch police, rendering the strain of malware inactive. The infection of FluBot starts with the victim receiving an SMS message that includes a link to a malicious URL. The victim clicks the link and is prompted to install an app. The victim downloads and opens the malicious app that installs FluBot. FluBot accesses the victim's contact list and uploads it to the command and control server. FluBot downloads a list of new contacts to target. FluBot sends SMS messages to the new list of targeted contacts, thus propagating FluBot. Now, if you think a malicious app was infected on your device, the best practice is to reset the phone to factory settings. With that, I say thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe if you haven't already, and smash the bell if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Don't forget to ride!